Welcome to another edition of SpartanMag Live. We appreciate everybody coming in and joining us once again to talk Michigan State sports, football, basketball, all those things. Before we get to all that, let's talk about one of our sponsors, Roback. Roback, R-H-O-B-A-C-K, great line of activewear, and there's only one way to describe Roback. It's best fit and also best feel. For those of you that are not familiar with Roback, they're completely changing the game with their incredibly comfortable activewear. Roback has released some great new licensed items within the Roback Game Day collection, including these Michigan State items you see behind me right now. And there's the new novel polo designs and a clean hoodie look, and the Q-zip designs for some of your favorite schools and teams, including Michigan State. It's definitely worth checking out. Nobody else in the market is pairing these level of custom designs with this quality of activewear. Not just hoodies and quarter zips. Check out the everyday shorts and Delta Performance pants. Super comfortable, elastic waistband, and great fabric. Roback, R-H-O-B-A-C-K. It's the best. I got a promotional code for you. Use MSU20, MSU20 at roback.com, RHOBACK.com for 20% off. For all new customers. That's spelled R-H-O-B-A-C-K. You see it right there. That's 20% off on all performance polos, shirts, and more with code MSU20. And if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, if you're a gambler, do so, but gamble responsibly, please. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. 1-800-GAMBLER if you have a gambling problem. Not a joke, but if you game responsibly, check it out. Go to betmgm.com for terms. I got a promotional code for you for that. Also, 21 and over only, and for the BetMGM deal. betmgm.com. Use bonus code ON3, and you will get up to $1,500 in a first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. And here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. So make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary and game with BetMGM.com. Disclaimer here now. BetMGM.com. Go to MGM.com for terms. 21 and over only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem. Like I said, call 1-800-GAMBLER or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY in New York, or text HOPE-NY. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In Massachusetts, call 1-800-327-5050. In Iowa, call 1-800-BETS-OFF. In Puerto Rico, call 1-800-981-0023. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days. This is done in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you have not signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Also, Shupan, our friends at Shupan, as you know, Michigan State recycling rate has fallen from 90% to 73% in recent years. Michiganders are squandering $105 million per year by not taking back their bottles and cans. That's hurting the environment. That hurts our roads, hurts our beaches, hurts our environment. They're your roads, your beaches, your lakes. So take them back. Help the environment, help yourself, help your beaches, and it's worth your time, it's worth your dime. Take them back. A message from Shupan, a great Michigan company dedicated to recycling and dedicated to your Michigan State Spartans. It is Thursday afternoon, East Lansing, Michigan. Come on in. Gather around Spartan Mag Live, abbreviated version. Going to talk some Michigan State basketball. Michigan State basketball recruiting with Paul Konyndyk. Does a great job at Spartan Mag. Been doing a great job with Spartan Mag for years and years. This guy's ear to the ground in Michigan State basketball recruiting right now, and also he was at basketball practice yesterday. I was at practice last week. We will compare notes about Michigan State basketball as the calendar flips to October and things become a little bit more serious about basketball. Some of the basketball fans out there, they're really eager to get into it. And some of those that have been focusing on football, a little bit of basketball is always good to expand the palette a little bit. Paul Konyndyk, the leaves are changing in East Lansing. It's a beautiful day, and we're going to talk some Michigan State basketball. Paul, how you doing, buddy? You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Awesome. Michigan State yesterday got a big commitment. Julius Avent. Coverage over at SpartanMag.com. Go over to SpartanMag.com for $1. You can become a very happy subscriber. You'll like it. 1 week, try it for a week for $1. You will like it. Also, give us a like here on the channel. Subscribe to this channel. We'd love to have you become available to notifications as we post new videos and so forth. Julius Avent, 6'7", 200, Bergen Catholic in New Jersey, committed to Michigan State over Seton Hall, Xavier, and some others. Official visit to Michigan State in August. Michigan State came on stronger as it went along. Got the commitment yesterday. I've spoken with some people over there at Michigan State basketball, and they categorize him. They can't talk about him on the record, but I've heard that they think that he's an OKG, our kind of guy. Another one of those OKGs. They've had a lot of them over at Michigan State over the years. This one, Paul, I know you've compared him to Malik Hall a little bit. I agree with that. We'll expand on that in a moment. But first of all, I think you spoke with his high school coach earlier this morning at Bergen Catholic. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, and that's a really good school and from a really good league, and that's a school with really good culture. Billy Armstrong, the head coach there, has won 3 state championships since 2019. He won a state championship last year with Julius Avent playing a big role, scoring 14.5 points and giving about 6.5 rebounds per game. Shooting about 40% from 3 last year and helping lead them to a state championship. But that's a Big Ten program. That's where Zach Fremantle came out of. And they play a high level of basketball. Dylan Harper, the kid from Rutgers that got drafted in the first round, he was in that conference, and that was one of the players that they competed against 2 years ago. So they're continuously going up against Division I guys. It's well coached. Catholic School League, they're going up against guys like Don Pasco and other schools, and they're doing it the right way. And Julius Avent comes from a basketball family. His dad played at Seton Hall. His brother played at Seton Hall, where he was a walk-on. And Julius Avent's kind of branching out on his own, wants to do his own thing, and he's going to be playing at Michigan State. And I think the OKG tag is apt because he's a kid that has kind of worked for everything he's gotten. He's not an entitled kid. He wasn't hyped up as as a top 25 guy coming out. He didn't play JV he didn't play varsity as a freshman. He played JV ball, had to earn it, and has slowly gotten better. And he's kind of earned his expanding accolades this past summer. Had a really good really good NBA players top 100 camp. That's how he earned the Michigan State offer. And Spartans have been on him for a long time, on him in the evaluation process. But after the NBA players camp in June, that's when Michigan State turned up the gas on that recruitment and really made him a priority recruit. And they're going to be happy they got him because I think he brings a lot to the table.
Championship player. Did you say 46% from 3-point range last year as a junior?
I said around 40%.
Okay.
His coach didn't give me around 40% in high school. I know like when he played for the PSA Cardinals, the EYBL. During the regular season, he only shot 29%, but when they went in the Peach Jam, he shot 38% when those guys were playing in the Peach Jam, and he also shot 37% at the NBA Players Camp. So I think he doesn't shoot a ton of threes like a lot of these stretch four guys or big wings or whatever you want to describe them as, but he is a good 3-point shooter. His coach told me that he considers him the best 3-point shooter on their team, and they've got some good shooters. So he said that part of his game will be more on display this year, he believes, but he thinks he's going to be just fine there. He brings a lot of other skills to the table that a lot of some of these guys that have a ton of hype that because they're volume 3-point shooters don't bring. I love the way he handles the ball. Mm-hmm. They play a 5-out offense at Bergen Catholic, and you know what that is. But I'll explain it to our listeners out there. That's 5 guys outside the 3-point line. So it spreads the floor quite a bit, and it creates a lot of driving angles. And you can see with his ability to put the ball on the floor, his ability to come to a 2-foot jump stop, down low, and come up with his shoulder square and make a lot of plays that way. But he's got really good skill with the ball in his hands. People like to say, use the cliche, "Oh, he's a point guard." Well, he's not a point guard, but he has the ability. He has the ability to get a rebound and finish, and he's got the ability to, in a half-court set, to drive and kick and that type of thing. And he's got a game that I think translates really well to the college level. And I think he's also a guy that can, if he watches AAU film, he can put down a jump hook. And a lot of guys that have the stretch floor tag can't do that. So I think he's going to help out in a lot of different ways for Michigan State. But I think the other thing about him is that he's had to work for everything he's gotten, and he's not afraid to get coached hard. And he doesn't think that X amount of minutes he's entitled to X amount of minutes as a freshman. He's going to earn everything he gets, and that's what Michigan State needs. And I think that's what you got to have out of freshmen in the portal era. You've got to have guys that are willing to work.
And what was and we watched some video right now from college basketball scouting, and shout out to them. They do a really good job with their videos. Watching Avent right now, you can see his skills, and it's interesting insight that you provide from their coach about their style of play. Billy Armstrong championship program there, 5 out, and you can see that his style of play has been developed for that system with the face-up skill. He's worked on some things to beat people off the dribble, and as his college game progresses, he will have a chance to do that. Right away at Michigan State, you wouldn't ask a freshman power forward to put it on the deck a whole lot, but this guy will come in as a power forward with more advanced in that skill than maybe Malik Hall was when he arrived, even though Malik Hall was expected to be more of a wing forward. I know we've compared him to Malik Hall. You have too, and I think that's a good comparison. I think that Avent, you went back and watched some Malik Hall high school film to refresh your memory, as did I, and Avent has a stronger build right now than Hall did in high school. Hall became a pretty respectable three-point shooter, but it was a long journey, and even into his senior year, it was hot and cold. Didn't get a lot of opportunities early in his career. I suspect Avent will get more opportunities to range shoot early in his career, and more later, I would think. But that ability to shoot three-pointers at the power forward position, so important in all levels of basketball, and extremely important in the Tom Izzo system, as it is in most systems. When Izzo has made runs deep in the tournament, he's had a stretch four that can hit three-pointers, not only provide scoring in that regard, but also make defenses honor that three-point shot, which opens everything up. It's so important in this system. Julius Avent, projects as somebody that's going to be able to provide stretch four skill. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And he doesn't shoot a ton of threes like on the circuit, but in his first 2 years on varsity, he made 43 threes. As a sophomore starter, he made 43 threes, and then last year he made 48 threes. So it's not like he's not shooting.
That's a good number.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just looking at I'm just going through their stats right now, and it's against really good teams. And I would say, that the one thing that I like about him, and I think that another OKG aspect of his game is that he doesn't have to dominate the ball. I think he can play within. I've seen games of his where doesn't have the ball in his hands a lot. He's playing away from the ball or whatever, and he doesn't need to have the ball in his hands to be the center of attention to make an impact. I think the strength thing that you mentioned, I think it's pretty apparent in some of the clips, that some of the fadeaway stuff that he can hit. That kind of reminded me of Malik Hall. Yeah. But they also have pretty good in that league they play, the Catholic school league that they play in. There's good weight rooms and good strength coaches throughout that league. So he's going up against guys like Dylan Harper, those kind of guys. And Dylan Harper from Rutgers, different position, obviously, at point guard, but there's a guy that wasn't extremely explosive athletically, but could create space with his body because he's physically stronger than a lot of guys. I think Avent is a guy I think he's a little bit bigger than 200 right now. I think he's probably closer to 210, 215. I'd expect him to play at around 235 or 240 when he gets to school.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember his dad from back in the day at Seton Hall.
Mm-hmm.
I went back and just yesterday, I just looked at a couple NBA clips. There's when he was with the Milwaukee Bucks. There's a game that he played against the Bulls in 1993, and I think he might have had a triple-double in that game. But he is a really good passer, and if you watch Anthony Avent, he's good with the ball in his hands for a center, and he's a really good passer. Now, Julius isn't as tall as his dad, and his dad was about 250, 255 when he played in the NBA. So I don't think he's going to be that big, but there's a lot of skill in that family, and it's interesting that guys can kind of look similar. It speaks to that basketball IQ when you watch his dad play and you watch him play, because there's really good passing and a really good awareness of his teammates.
Interesting. Yeah, I certainly remember Anthony Avent back in the heyday of the Big East. I don't really have total recall in studying his game like you went back and watched. I'm glad that you did. And Julius Avent, that's one of the reasons Seton Hall was in the middle of it. Anthony Avent played for P.J. Carlissimo, I assume, back in that era. And Michigan State able to go and get beat out Eastern schools for somebody. That speaks to Michigan State's recruiting power, which, when Izzo was just getting started, even 5 and 7 and 8 years into his career, it hadn't really taken shape for him yet. But now, all these years later, the Izzo name, the Michigan State brand, I'm not saying they can go out and outshine Duke or even North Carolina, Kansas, Kentucky on a regular basis, but the Michigan State brand is strong, and it came through with Avent in this one. When I watch him, that strong frame will do well for him in the Big Ten going forward. It'll help him have the opportunity possibly to play early, because a lot of times being able to play hard and having the strength is something that comes later, and sometimes players have to sit until that comes around. His frame right now leads to the possibility he could play early. Good range shooter, like we talked about, ability to put the ball on the court, like you mentioned. That's part of that 5-out offense. He's got the beginnings of some crossover moves and just good ball handling. Even though Malik Hall thought of himself and was brought along more as a 3 than a 4 when he was in high school, I think Avent has better face-up ball handling skills than Hall did. And Hall had a real nice career at Michigan State. I got great respect for him and wish him well in his pro aspirations right now. As far as Avent goes in the post, I know that Bergen doesn't do a lot post-up, maybe with the 5-out. Maybe they do a little bit here and there. But on the EYBL, the highlights I've seen Avent get into the post and show a good feel with a shuffle dribble, either to his left shoulder for a righty hook or right shoulder for counter moves. You can tell he's spent some time on that, probably with Dad. I don't know, but he's got some skill. The jumper is a little bit different because he has a half body turn when he goes up. That's a little bit different, but if it goes in, I doubt they're going to mess with that a whole lot. But the shot release looks pretty good. Interesting that you spoke with Billy Armstrong today for an article that'll be at SpartanMag.com, posted later. Did he say much more about his personality before we move on here a little bit?
Well, he just said he's a quiet kid who doesn't need to be the center of attention, but he plays his tail off and he won't be outworked. His brother Josiah Avent, he was a walk-on at Seton Hall. He's a teacher at Bergen Catholic, where Julius Avent goes to school, and he's also the travel coach for PSA Cardinals. Josiah Avent is, and those guys work early in the morning. They come in and work, and they work late at night. So there's a lot of time spent in the gym with Julius and his brother, and I think really. Julius Avent is kind of like one of those I'm not going to say late bloomers, but he's kind of like, I get late to the party in terms of people knowing who he is. And one of the things I like about some of the things in this Michigan State recruiting class that I'm seeing is there's a wide net cast. And I think that's something that has to happen during the NIL era. But I've seen Michigan State move away from guys that they were looking at really hard early. And they maybe weren't the best fit for him, and they moved in decisively in other directions, and I think that's one of the things I like in this situation, I want to go back to the recruitment for a little bit, because a lot of people thought, a lot of recruiting analysts on the East Coast, recruiting analysts in general thought, because Anthony Avent played for Seton Hall, that Julius Avent would be going to Seton Hall, and I think there's a lot of assumptions there. Billy Armstrong said that Michigan State flat out just out recruited everyone else that was involved. It wasn't even close in terms of like the press that they put on Tom Izzo, the amount of face time that he had, and we're talking even before they offered him. Tom Izzo had watched him play at Philly live, and he watched several high school games. So here's Tom Izzo, even before he's offered, has seen this kid play. Last summer, not this past summer, but the summer before, he knew who he was. He was on the radar, and Tom Izzo spent a lot of time. Thomas Kelly did a great job for Michigan State in this recruitment. Coach Armstrong raved about the job that Kelly did, and he just felt like that whole operation for Michigan State, the communication-wise, Tom Izzo being there for Julius for the whole program, Michigan State communicating how they saw him fit, what he could, what they could do for him, what he could do for them. I think it's kind of it was eye-opening for them as an entire program. They thought Michigan State did a killer job with this recruitment, and they were just really impressed with everything that the Michigan State brand stood for. And I think in this NIL era, we just assume that it's all about a paycheck, but in this instance, it wasn't that way. Michigan State really did a nice job with this recruitment, and the entire coaching staff deserves a lot of credit because they made a strong impression on that program, on that family, and that's a good thing moving forward. It's a good sign too that Tom Izzo is out there. I know people think, well, when is he going to retire? Well, he's out recruiting guys like Richard Pitino, who should be recruiting his tail off right now, and other guys that in the regional area. And I just think that, that's Coach Izzo. We've known that for years, but to see Michigan State get that kind of traction, and I think that's one benefit of the whole NIL thing. I think the recruiting calendar is a little bit later with some of that stuff, so you can move off guys that you evaluated, you thought were going to be guys for you when they were 15-year-olds, and they didn't quite pan out. You can move into another area and get those guys. And I think Michigan State did that last year, kind of with Cam Ward and Jordan Scott as well. And we've seen that with other guys over the years.
Really fascinating stuff and points that you bring up that I hadn't thought of. These recruits are committing a little bit later. I think I read something like 3 weeks ago that only 5 of the nation's top 50 players had committed as of 3 weeks ago. Partly because everybody's got their agents and they're looking for NIL deals and they're waiting and waiting and waiting. So you're having later commitments. And that's an interesting point you make, that with this new era of a little bit later commitments, that you can, change your course a little bit. And you make a great point about Michigan State making these decisive late movements on some people. And decisive late movements in terms of Cam Ward, I think ends up being an ultra accurate, great move. Somebody like you said, Avent was a little bit late in terms of national notoriety and publicity, not really a top 50 McDonald's All-American type of guy. Cam Ward, same way, but Cam Ward, you've seen him in practice. Excellent get for Michigan State last year, freshman this year. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Avent, he's listed at 6'7". He plays bigger than that, in my opinion. Did Armstrong mention anything about his height, or what would you classify him as? 6'7.5", 6'8"?
They've got him listed as 6'8", 220.
I agree. Yeah, I that's what I think also. So he's
got long arms too. So he plays bigger than he is.
Yeah, he can defend a 4 in the Big Ten, I would think, in the future, and present some problems at the other end. So he joins Carlos Medlock, Michigan State. 2 commitments at this point. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Another guy that Michigan State moved in on late, and I think there was a tremendous. Like, Michigan State doesn't have to do that. A lot of schools wouldn't do that, but for Michigan State to do what they did with Medlock, I think that's a really good get, a really strong get, and I think he's gonna really shine this year at Link Academy, and Michigan State's going to be proven very smart to pursue Medlock as hard as they did.
Yeah, point guard, quarterback, leader, feel for the game. Two good pickups for Michigan State, no question. Michigan State continues to recruit with room for one or two more. Big man and then a shooting guard. Looks like that's what they're going for. Ethan Taylor is going to be visiting this weekend, 7-footer, 230, ranked number 25 in the nation, number 2 center in the country. And he has visited Oregon in September, Oklahoma in September, Indiana and Kansas in September. He's supposed to visit Kentucky later in October. The word is that Indiana and Michigan State are perceived as the leaders. Also, Josiah Jervis, 6'5", shooting guard from Bronx, New York. Number 39 player in the country, visited Michigan State during the grind weekend of September 5th. Official visits to North Carolina State, Pittsburgh. Had planned official visits with Illinois, Florida, and Tennessee, but he might be nearing a decision. Maximo Adams, 6'7", 200, Harbor City, California, Sierra Canyon High School, number 23 player in the country. Visited Michigan State during the weekend of September 12th. Also official visits to USC in June, Kentucky in September. I think official visits set up with North Carolina Halloween weekend and Duke in early November. So those are some that are still on the radar at this point. Do you have any insight or any thoughts on any of those three, Paul? Ethan Taylor, Josiah Jervis, Maximo Adams.
I just think it's interesting with a guy like Ethan Taylor. He's also a Link Academy guy, so he's coming in for his official visit for Midnight Madness or Michigan State Madness or whatever they call it now on Friday night. And then, he should be around for his own camp out, I would assume, but he's coming in the same week as Medlock. So,
they are new teammates there at Link Academy.
Yeah, but they've been there for a while. They've been on campus and whatnot. So, I think
first year teammates. Last year Medlock was at Wayne Memorial.
First year teammates, but it's not like they're not living there right now. So I mean they know each other pretty well. And then Tristan Reed is also a Link Academy guy, I believe, and he visited. I believe he visited last weekend. So Michigan State absolutely needs to get a big guy, like a center. I think they need, I don't think it would be a bad thing for them to get two. Maxime Meyer is a guy should be coming in, a kid from Montreal, another 7-footer, a guy that's going to be coming in October 11. I think there's a lot of comparisons between him and Carson Cooper in terms of the way he moves, his length, and some of the things he can do. Carson Cooper came from IMG. Maxime Meyer is from IMG. He's much further ahead of where Cooper was as a high school senior at IMG, but I think he's a guy that's got a bunch of upside as a defensive player, a guy that can cover, a guy that can defend ball screens, and that's such a critical skill to have. So I think Michigan State's got, they've got some good guys on the table. But the biggest question I have now is, can you be successful as a college basketball program if you're bringing in 4 or 5 high school freshmen? How does that work with the transfer portal? I don't know what the correct balance is and how that everything needs to work out. But one of the things I would say too with Caleb Glenn, the FAU transfer that is out for this season. I was watching, him move around a little bit in practice. He's another big kid, man. I think he's done some really good things in the weight room. So I think Michigan State will have some length. And I know they would like to have Caleb Glenn this year as a 6'7", 6'8" guy who's pretty athletic. But he's pretty well put together, and he's done a nice job with his upper body while he's been off the basketball court. And kudos to strength coach Lorenzo Guest for getting him for keeping him fit and filling out his frame, because he was I thought he wasn't really that thick coming in, but he's taking full advantage of the Michigan State weight room.
Yeah, and you mentioned Tristan Reed. He visited Michigan State last weekend, brother of Terrace Reed, who played at Michigan and UConn, number 81 player in the country. Official visits with Ohio State, Mississippi State, and Missouri. Some of the word is that he might be leaning toward Missouri at this point. Max Meyer, number 197 in the country, visited Ohio State, Stanford, Vanderbilt, SMU, and St. Mary's. And like you said, it'll be interesting to see if Michigan State does want to take 2 big men. That would be different in this day and age, but you're losing Kohler and Cooper. So for the future, that'd be an interesting play. Also, you make an interesting point. In this day and age, the era of a 4-man basketball recruiting class is rare. And will Michigan State do that this year? Remains to be seen. That'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Caleb Glenn, Izzo said in the interview that you posted on this channel a couple of days ago after practice, Caleb Glenn looking good. Izzo said conceivably they maybe could get him back in February, but he said, I'm not going to do that to the kid. He's too good a player, too good of a kid. In other words, it might help Michigan State this year, late in the year, but even if you did bring him back, you'd have some rust to work off, and you'd have to, to get the puzzle pieces all straight. Just bank that year as a redshirt, bring him back next year. And I think Izzo confirmed that Caleb Glenn has 2 years of eligibility remaining. So
that is correct. That is correct.
So long term, Caleb Glenn's going to be around a while, and you can tell the way Izzo interacts with him that they get along real well, and that's good to see also. Let's shift gears. One more thing about Avent. Cam Ward, I think Avent and Cam Ward are kind of the same position. They're both 4s. I don't think they swing to the 3, and I don't know if they can masquerade as a center against most teams. I see them playing the same position and being a tag team. I don't know if they can share the court together. Your thoughts about how those two could fit in the future?
Well, I think the thing about Avent that you got to realize is that he's a guy that I don't think he has to play a volume of minutes. He's going to be able to come along. So if he plays a role and he can help the team win, he's going to be happy. And I think the big thing with Michigan State and him is communication. I think the big thing with a lot of high school players coming into college right now, you've got to be continuously communicating, telling them what the plan is, helping them out along that plan, and understanding you've got to ease into it. But I think you've got to bring in guys that are OKGs, and he's a guy. The one thing that I would say is this about him: he stayed with the same AAU program all the way through. He stayed with the same high school program all the way through, and he didn't transfer high schools when he didn't start as a freshman on varsity. For a guy that's got that kind of talent and that kind of background, that says a lot about who he is in his understanding of the process. So I think he comes from a background where people understand basketball, they understand what it takes to develop, and I think he's going to be fine in whatever role he earns, and that's the key with him. It's going to be earning, and he's not an entitlement guy. And I think that's going to be really refreshing. I don't think Cam Ward's an entitlement guy either. I think that Michigan State has done a pretty good job with a lot of their high school recruits that they brought in that aren't entitlement guys. Kurt Tang, not an entitlement guy. A lot of guys ranked as highly as he was coming in would have bolted last year.
Yeah.
A guy that was the MVP of the Adidas 3 SSB circuit. Right. And he played a handful of minutes a game. He stuck around. I think he's going to play more this year. So I think you got to bring in guys that are those OKGs if you're going to make player development work in the portal era.
Right. How many more minutes do we have with you, Paul?
We got time.
All right. So you were at practice a couple of days ago. What were some of your observations at Michigan State basketball practice as they get ready for Midnight Madness Friday night?
Number one observation is that, and this isn't a huge surprise, but Trey Fort, who's been to 5 different schools before he came to Michigan State, is having a hard time becoming Spartanized as a defensive player. And this is something we've seen in the past with guys, like Bryn Forbes and a lot of other guys over the years. But I don't think Trey Fort thought it was going to be this difficult on defense coming to the program, and he's finding out that doing the things Michigan State way is a lot different than what he's used to, and that's going to take a little bit of time. So I think that's something we've got to watch. The good news for Michigan State fans with Trey Fort is he got a ton of athletic upside. He wants to be a competent defender, but nothing's going to be handed to him, and I think it's to his benefit long term. But it will be interesting to watch early because I thought guard defense was such a huge part of Michigan State's success last year, and I do not think that they're going to be close to as good as they were on defense in the backcourt as they were a year ago. Yeah,
last year with Akins, Trey Holloman, Fears, excellent back there. This year you would expect Fears to become even better as a defender in the backcourt. Izzo likes the way Cohen Carr is coming around as a defender. Carr's going to be starting this year. He played starter minutes at the end of the year, as it turned out anyway. Fort, I like his lateral movement with all that leaping ability and physical strength and a strong frame. You saw Izzo leaning on him hard defensively in practice yesterday. I saw it happen last week also. I saw Izzo smooth it over and sandwich it in with just a little points here and there. This week, Izzo mentioned it publicly in the first thing he mentioned in the post-practice briefing is the things that Trey Fort needs to learn defensively. There's a message of urgency there. Basically, they need Trey Fort to be the type of defensive player that Jaden Akins was as a senior, and it took Jaden Akins 3 years to get there defensively. They've got 3 months to try to get Trey Fort to get a 3-year level of Spartanization in terms of defensive awareness. And what it comes down to is knowledge of the system, of course, but they don't allow a millisecond of casualness or a mental vacation. And it's not like it's just habits. It's just a lot of guys on defense are not accustomed to being tuned in every single millisecond as to where the ball screen is coming from on defense and where do you help on this player as opposed to that player and what their strengths are and all those things that need to be dialed in. So the only way to get that done is make it ultra urgent right now. And that's what Izzo's doing with Trey Ford, because Ford has a lot of other skills and tools that can really be helpful. And what's going to happen, there's going to be times this year when he gets yanked out of games and loses playing time in order to drive home those messages even more. And they'll hope to get all of it together as as they head into midseason form and so forth. But no question, he's got excellent tools and he's shooting well. What other observations did you have from practice?
I thought Kurt Tang played. I thought Kurt Tang, and he was. If you guys listened to the VCast the other day, he was one of my question marks. Where I'm like, does he move well enough to defend at the level he needs to for Michigan State to be okay and to take advantage of his shooting? And I thought Kurt Tang, he really impressed me. I'm not saying he's an elite defender, but he's not like, his movement isn't as shaky as I've seen in the past with some other guys. And I can name a few, whether it's like guys like Alvin Ellis or, Garrett Normand, those kind of guys, Kyle Arns. I mean, I thought Kurt Tang played very well, moved very well. And I think he understands that this is his opportunity, and the level of effort that he played with, it was a stark contrast to Fort, because Kurt Tang did not have any wasted movement. He did not take any plays off. He was diving for loose balls. He was scrapping for everything. And I thought he impressed me more. His shooting was really good, but he impressed me more with how hard he competed away from, like when he wasn't shooting, the way he sprints the floor, the way he beat defenses down the floor, and he beat Fort down the floor a couple times, and that was that kind of was what got Izzo talking about. I need someone that can defend that I don't have to put my 99-year-old mother out there to defend. So I don't think he's not Trey Fort. I think it's not naive, but I don't think he's going to ever get close to the Jaden Akins level, because Jaden Akins is a better defender. He took some vacations here and there, and he made some mistakes. But Jaden Akins was a good defender, and he was a good effort guy. I'm not seeing it from Trey Fort at this point. Do I think he has physical tools to get there? Yeah, I do. But it's going to take some work, and I don't think it's going to happen from the start of the season.
Yeah, I initially thought
that
it took 3 years of work with Akins. So trying to get that at 3 months out of somebody, that's hard. Even a mature guy like Fort. Go ahead.
I would say second year Akins is what you could hope for from Fort.
Yeah.
I think that's realistic, and I thought that Kurt Tang would be a guy that's a spot-up shooter coming off the bench. I think you might see the opposite. I think that Fort might be coming off the bench if until he puts in that effort. And I think some of it's a mental hurdle. I do think that, when I talked to him this summer at Moneyball, one of the things I asked him about, hey, what about defense? And his thought process on defense was, I'm a great athlete. I was asked to press when I was at Stanford. I was asked to run around and do all these different things. I'm going to be just fine on defense. And then you wake up and you're required to play Michigan State defense, and it's a lot different. And, through no fault of his own, it doesn't help that you've been at 5 different programs and playing 5 different styles of defense. It's kind of crazy. And then coming into Michigan State, where there's a level of defense expected, and you can tell the difference between those guys that haven't been in the program and the guys that have. Yeah. Like Divine Ogachukwu I think is going to be a good player. I think he's going to develop into a decent defender, but Izzo has had to press his buttons too. There's times where he doesn't, where he's taking his foot off the gas pedal here and there, and that's not the way things are done at Michigan State.
Right.
And these guys have got to learn that, and it's up to, and that's where I guess the benefit of having older guys like Konyndyk, guys like Carson Cooper, Jeremy Fears, those guys got to do their part to help those young guys along.
Right, and that's good to hear about Kurtang, because coming out of the summer, I wasn't really sure about his overall quickness on defense and so forth. And he's got that reputation of a shooter, and I've kind of never really been completely dazzled by it. But last week shot pretty well, and good for him that he looks like he's competing favorably for that starting job. And a guy that the coaches really loved last year that literally took a seat and was not in the playing group and handled it extremely well in this age of NIL and portal and everything. Played his role, and they love his attitude. And sounds like I'll be eager to watch him in the weeks ahead. And that's interesting that he had a really good practice earlier this week that you saw with Divine Ugochukwu. There was a play during practice. I know the coaches don't want us to say a whole lot about what goes on specifically in practice, but this one they probably wouldn't mind. Divine went in and finished a shot with a lay-in, and Izzo blew his whistle and said, "Do that again, go in and dunk it." And he went in and dunked it. And the message was, we go all out. We have to go all out. And when you're coaching transfers that you're expecting a rollout of, you need to expedite that learning curve, and you don't get 3 years like you did with Akins, or 2 years with Bryn Forbes, who was different defensively in year 2. So Izzo is hands-on in practice and molding that clay. Carson Cooper continued to come along. Izzo's mentioned him a few times. His post play, you saw semblance, beginnings of the righty hook 2-3 years ago in practice. It never showed itself in the game, or it rarely did. Maybe at the very end of a shot clock, maybe, but he never stopped working on it. And now he's got some left-handed post-up game too. And this summer we saw him shoot from the perimeter. And Izzo was asked, "Is this a guy that's going to be shooting as a trailer in the transition?" And Izzo's like, "No, but they don't want him to think that he's Dirk Nowitzki just yet. But he can hit open shots from the perimeter if that, and not just when the shot clock's down." Now, do they use him as a pick and pop first option? Not sure about that. They were developing in that direction with Kohler last year, and Kohler had the green light for some of those shooting windows last year in February and March. I would go as far as to say I think Cooper might be a better shooter than Kohler right now. Now, Jackson might disagree with that, but it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Who's the best shooting big man for Michigan State? Paul, any thoughts on that?
I think that Jackson Kohler's been working his tail off on getting it done inside. I think both of those guys are guys that can hit some face up, but I think Carson Cooper has definitely put in the work, and it's not just the face up threes. It's the 12 footers. It's the baseline stuff. It's all the nuanced stuff. And, you make a good point, because he never stopped working on it, but to do it in games, you have to do it on a consistent basis. It's like one of those things where you can't just say, "Hey, I've got a jump hook and use it." It's something you gotta work at constantly to get everything right. And he's feeling good about his offense. He said something interesting, after practice the other day. He basically said, "I've earned this. I've earned the right to shoot these shots." Mm-hmm. And he was very adamant about it. And I love that confidence from him. He has worked hard, and I think they can benefit from that. And I think especially when I think back to some of the teams that they played and some of the drop coverage that they face and whatnot. He needs to be able to hit an elbow jumper. He needs to hit, you need to be able to hit 17 footers. You need to be able to hit open threes. He needs to be. I don't know if he's going to give them exactly what that Wisconsin big guy gave them, but if you're open, go ahead and hit it, and it's going to be really interesting. I do wonder, there's other things I wonder about, but I think Kohler to me is like he looks pretty effective in the post, and man, they were physical the other day at practice. Jesse McCulloch is a physical kid. They've got a lot of physical players, and they were getting after it, and it was fun to see, and it was fun to watch those guys compete, and it makes you appreciate how much fun it is to watch a Michigan State practice, because in a lot of ways those are more fun to watch than games.
Yes, and Cam Ward, we're watching video of practice from a week and a half ago right now as this goes on, and Cam Ward light on his feet and brings a combative nature, a good-natured combativeness, a good-natured competitiveness. And Izzo made the point that, Cam Ward has given Kohler a tough go down there. No animosity, but at all. But Cam Ward, like we said in the VCast a couple of days ago, defends and is obstructive for every inch of air and inch of space on that court. He's battling for the right to that inch everywhere. And that can be a pain in the rear for Kohler, having to deal with that all the time, but it's going to make Kohler a better player. Kohler, senior, there's no easy days in practice for Kohler right now, battling not only with Cooper, but Ward, who only has one gear, and that is bumper cars all the time. And then you mentioned Jess McCulloch. You liked him a lot coming out of high school. I wasn't so sure right away. Started to see it last year in practice while he redshirted, and he grew another inch, I'm pretty sure. But that shot release with McCulloch, he's got a nice, smooth shot release with nice rotation. I think I'll be interested to see what he becomes as a face-up shooter down the stretch. But he made some plays last year in the post in practice where Izzo would just turn his head and roll his eyes like, man, this guy could be helping us right now, but they made the decision to redshirt him and so forth. Jesse McCulloch, what'd you see from him from practice, and what do you think about him here early in the season?
Now, we only saw the second half of practice the other day because Izzo was down on McCulloch in the first half of practice. But okay. I thought Jesse, he rode Jesse pretty hard. Apparently, that's what Izzo said. But Jesse McCulloch more than made up for it in the second half of practice, and that's one of the things you like to see. I know that kid's coachable.
Yeah.
And he played hard. And I think the one thing I think back to last year, he could have helped Michigan State. There's no doubt in my mind that having Jesse McCulloch available instead of Xavier Booker would have been a benefit for Michigan State.
Yes.
And you talk about the no quarter given in practice, and one of the things that I think about with Jackson Kohler is he didn't, him going up against Xavier Booker in practice, that that's really a non-contest, and he wasn't as battle tested. And I think by him going up against the guys he is going up against right now, you're going to see more games like he had against Auburn, where he competed for everything and really went into the off season. Despite the disappointment of that loss, he gave it everything he had in that game, and I think you're going to see a good year from Kohler. I still think he's one of the best rebounders on the team. He's strong, and his conditioning is as good as it was last year. I like some of the length on this team. I like the competitive fire, and I just think McCulloch is also a guy that he's young, but he's a talker, he's vocal, and he's self-confident, and those are. He's different for a redshirt freshman. He brings a lot to the table. You talk about the shot release for him. I liked some of the stuff I saw from him shooting threes when he was in high school, and he didn't do it a lot, but he made some of them. I saw him do it a couple times when he was playing for Indy Heat. Even as a youngster, he's got some game, and but he's strong. And I think that's one thing. He was strong last year, but that time in the weight room was well spent for him, and he's going to be a plus rebounder. And I think Michigan State needs to have more rebounding inside to segue over to Konyndyk, because he's going to be playing the three a lot more. And I think back to Miles Bridges when he was at Michigan State. I think he had a lot more rebounds when he was at the four than when he was at the three. So one of the things that Izzo was talking about after practice the other day is Konyndyk needs to get more range rebounds. And you got to cover a lot more distance when you're at the three to get rebounds than you do at the four. And so I think having some physical foremen and some physical bigs, and having I think having a guy like McCulloch, because I think he can be a better rebounder than Shimon Zapala was. I think that's going to be beneficial to Michigan State. And I really like what Konyndyk is doing as well.
Yeah, and McCulloch, I agree with you. And that's one of the things I wrote in my notes while watching him practice. He just has a veteran disposition about him. He doesn't carry himself like a redshirt freshman. He's affable. Everybody likes him. He's good-natured. He's got, he's always fluffed up and fuzzy bunny tail all over the place, but a big dude with all kinds of talent and skill. He enjoys being in practice and going to work. And long arms and, low post skills. Jesse McCulloch is going to be an impact redshirt freshman for Michigan State, and it's going to be fun to watch.
And he communicates on defense, man. That's rare. Another rare thing for a redshirt freshman. He talks on defense. I mean, it's vocal, and that's the other thing that these new guys aren't used to. whether it's Trey Fort or Divine Ogechukwu, is the amount of talking and communication that Michigan State does on defense. And you can see these guys when they're getting tired, not talking as much. The guys that have been in the Michigan State program continue to talk, continue to be vocal out there when they're playing defense. And that's another Michigan State characteristic. But Jesse McCulloch is one of the better young big men communicators that I've covered.
And we're just watching some video snippets right there. The low post guys were going to work with black basketballs. Those are weighted basketballs that you just saw a moment ago, which is something new they're doing at Michigan State. Habits-wise, Jesse McCulloch had a good practice last week, but there was one occasion when he didn't move his feet quickly enough laterally, and Izzo lit into him. No milliseconds, no casualness, especially someone who's making progress. They don't let you, step the foot off the gas pedal even a little bit. And that's interesting to watch that. Also, we always heard about John Wooden and the way he used to coach the first day of practice. He would start with teaching the guys how to put on their socks, how to tie their shoes. Izzo's not that meticulous on day one, but last week on day one, there were a couple of times when, Trey Fort and Divine Ogechukwu, they were dribbling with the ball out to the side. Izzo wants the ball out front. And I remember Heathcote, day one, even Sean Respert as a junior, still had a bad habit of having the ball out to the side. They want it out front. You get to point A to point B quicker. You're less likely for back tips. But there were some things that were not quite teaching them how to tie their shoes, but middle school level fundamentals that you saw being implemented. And they've had time to practice with these guys throughout the summer and into the fall. But even the first day of practice with the whole team for 2 hours, it was interesting to watch some of those things implemented. Jordan Scott, the transfer from the Virginia area, is not as skinny as he was in June. He's still thin, but he's added a nice little layer, and Izzo liked the way he was getting deflections on defense last week. And Michigan State exhibitions are going to be coming up in a week or two, and it's going to be another fun team to watch. They won the Big Ten last year by 3 games, and they're hard at work to try to be even better this year. That's going to take some work to do it, but that's the plan. And this team is a team that has Izzo's stamp on it, and they were very close last year, and that's one of the reasons they had a lot of success. And Izzo wants that closeness to continue to carry over, and he's eager to see how much closeness there is with other programs around the country. Florida had it last year. Some other programs have had it. Michigan State expects to have that as a strength going forward now with Jeremy Fears being a pretty good captain and Carson Cooper as well. Paul, we'll let you go now. Really appreciate your time and your insight and the work that you put in to keep your ear to the ground with basketball recruiting and also being in practice 2 days ago, putting in a lot of hours to have that insight. We really appreciate that. Anything else you want to add?
No, and I will agree with you about the Jordan Scott. He looks noticeably thicker than when we saw him at Moneyball, so that's a good thing. And the one thing about Michigan State practice is you got to have something to you because when they run some defensive stuff, they are bumping and it's physical and it's like a game. So I think these guys are going to be, I think they're going to be ready to go. The one thing I do like about Jordan Scott is he can shoot the heck out of the ball, and he's got a good looking shot. So. And, he's another guy that comes from, like a basketball family. So I think, he's a hardworking dude. But I've always wondered, like, him coming in. I knew Cam Ward was going to be physically up to the task. I wondered about Jordan Scott. And in this transfer portal area, you guys have to be physically ready to do it when they're going up against older guys. I'm not sure where he's going to be at, but I suspect he's going to be able to provide some shooting coming off that bench.
All right, Paul, I'll let you go now. I really appreciate your time. And I'll see you soon. We get ready to cover that game in Nebraska. Thanks a lot, Paul Konyndyk. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
All right, I want to say it's great to have Paul on with us. I was trying to get something else here. But anyway, I want to say if you have not signed up for BetMGM yet, make sure to do that if you're so inclined, if you're interested in those type of things. And we want to say that BetMGM, it's a partner with the On3 Network and SpartanMag.com. And we've got a bonus code for you at BetMGM. Use bonus code ON3, and you will get up to $1,500 in first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. And here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. That's O and the number 3. And deposit at least $10. Place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. So make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary. Get involved with BetMGM. And go to betmgm.com for terms. 21 and over only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER and also call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY in New York, or text HOPE-NY, or call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, or 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, or in Iowa, 1-800-BETS-OFF. In Puerto Rico, 1-800-981-0023. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days. And this is done in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you have not signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code ON3 and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Also, Schupan, our friends at Schupan, as you know, Michigan's recycling rate has fallen from 90% to 73% in recent years. Michiganders are squandering $105 million per year by not taking back their bottles and cans. That's hurting the environment. So help the environment, help yourself, help the beaches and lakes and roads in the state of Michigan. Take them back. So take back those bottles and cans, ladies and gentlemen. Take them back. A message from Schupan, a great Michigan company dedicated to recycling and dedicated to your Michigan State Spartans. I want to talk about Roback now. If you've got any of this stuff, the Michigan State line, check it out. That one right there is a good one. Got to tell you, people, that's a nice one. Roback Activewear. There's only one way to describe Roback, ladies and gentlemen. Well, there's two ways. Best fit, best feel. For those who are not familiar with Roback, they are completely changing the game with their incredibly comfortable activewear. Roback has released some great news, and I've got an MSU promotional code for you in a minute for 20% off. And Roback has released some great new licensed items within the Roback Game Day collection. There are new novel polo designs and clean hoodie and quarter zip designs for representing some of your favorite schools and some of your favorite teams, including Michigan State with the new Michigan State line. It's definitely worth checking out. Nobody else in the market is pairing these level of custom designs with this quality of activewear, and not just hoodies and quarter zips. Check out the everyday shorts and Delta performance pants. Super comfortable, elastic waistband, great fabric. Roback, it's the best. Spelled R-H-O-B-A-C-K. R-H-O-B-A-C-K. Go to roback.com, R-H-O-B-A-C-K.com. Use promotional code MSU20, MSU20, that is. And you'll get 20% off for all new customers. And again, that's spelled R-H-O-B-A-C-K.com. 20% off on all performance polos, shorts, and more with code MSU20. And thanks, everybody, for checking in with SpartanMag Live this week. I know it's late in the week, but I got it in to talk a lot of basketball this week. We appreciate everybody coming in, hanging out with us. SpartanMag Live. We will see you next time, coming off Michigan State's big football game in Lincoln, Nebraska. Take care, everybody.